What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Views from the Sideline. It's been like far too long since we did one of these, at least 10 months now? I think since last summer. So literally the entire NBA season has gone by since we did one of these. So there's just a lot to talk about. I'm here with Daniel, and we have a very special guest on the show today. We have Roman
How y'all
joining us
doing?
for the first time. I hear you're a big Sixers fan.
I am. I think you can tell by the jersey. Gotta rep him today on the pod. But yeah, diehard Sixers fan. Haven't been a Sixers fan for too long. Got into basketball pretty recently, to be fair. But I'll still rep this team.
Are you from Philly, or is it just like...
I am not. I'm from Atlanta, but I ain't getting into basketball until I moved up to Philly. So just kind of rock the hometown team. I ain't really have a care.
Okay, gotcha. All right, well, I guess we'll just start right from where the season ended. The NBA Finals, of course. Honestly, a pretty boring finals overall, if I had to say so myself. I didn't really enjoy it. I think like game three was good, but outside of that, it was kind of a snooze fest. But we had the Boston Celtics versus the Dallas Mavericks in the finals. Obviously, the Celtics won in pretty convincing fashion. They won in 5 games. Like 3 of those games were blowouts. And Jaylen Brown actually got the Finals MVP, which was pretty different from, I think, not pretty different, but people have usually said Jason Tatum is the best player on this team, and Jaylen Brown did win that Finals MVP. So I want to ask you guys, do you think that was deserved? Do you think that he should have gotten the Finals MVP, or it should have been Jason Tatum?
You want to start this off?
Yeah, sure, I'm down. I mean, honestly, I think he did deserve it. I think although like Tatum had the better stats in the finals, Brown was way more efficient and he defended really well, especially against the bigger players like Luca and then like PJ Washington. Like obviously in this finals compared to like the past rounds in the playoffs this year, the Mavericks, you didn't see much outside of Luca and Kyrie. Like you had like against like the Thunder and the Timberwolves, you had guys like PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, like stepping up, making big plays, like scoring 30 a night, like PJ did for that stretch for 3 or 4 games. So I think Jaylen Brown really deserved it. I think Tatum had a great finals, but I think Jaylen Brown just really like stood out, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about the Finals MVP, a key thing, for me at least, is your efficiency. You can score a bunch of points, you can fill up the stat sheet, but efficiency is a really important point. Aside from, I think it was game 4, a convincing Mavs win, Jaylen Brown had some of the best efficiency numbers I've seen in a while. Game 3, big one, 30 points on 12 or 22 shooting, 8 boards, 8 assists, near triple double in that one. He scored about 20 points in every game of the. He scored actually 20 points in every game of the finals, aside from their one loss in game 4. And Tatum, even in their wins, what was that? I think that's game 3 over there. Yeah, game 3, he was 4 for 13 from three, 6 of 22 in game 2, and 6 of 16 in game 1, 4 of 10 in game 3, and 11 of 24. His numbers aren't that great. And I think the big thing you're harping on right now is Tatum might have scored more, but Jaylen Brown did more with less. And I think ultimately that kind of leads into the big factoring of why they've given him the Finals MVP.
But what do
Mhm.
you say to the fact that Tatum he had a very all around series? Like he was averaging almost double digit. I'm not average, not almost, but he had multiple double digit assist games. He had multiple games with 9 rebounds. Like he wasn't just scoring like usual. I know the efficiency was bad, but a lot of people were arguing, and even I myself thought, he had a very all around final series. So doesn't that have some merit?
I think it does. I think it definitely does have some merit. But you also can't ignore that Jaylen Brown did near the exact same thing. I won't lie, Tatum did it on a far more efficient level. What was it? 11 rebounds, 12 assists, 11 assists, 8 rebounds. You see it a lot more often, but there are also lulls and dips. Jaylen Brown was basically around 8 rebounds, 7 assists for most of the series. And then you combine that with his efficiency. The thing that's not going to show up here is defense. I think that Jaylen Brown had a harder defensive matchup most of the time. And I
Yeah.
think that kind of ultimately led to some of the factoring in his MVP.
For sure. Yeah. Because you can't defense, you don't see defense in a lot of the statistics here, honestly.
Yeah, that is
And
that is a key part.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So I think that the consensus between all of us is that I think I think Brown deserved it. If I had the other thing I had to take away from this finals was the dominance of the Celtics this entire season, where they came in through the regular season, absolutely swept everyone, destroyed like lost what, 15, 16 games, then came in again. I mean, came in through the playoffs, won every matchup they needed to win. won the finals in convincing fashion. And I got to ask, do you think this team can replicate that success again? Because we've seen now for what, like the past 6 years in a row, since that Warriors dynasty, no team has been able to even get past the second round the year after. You know, the Nuggets lost, Raptors, Lakers, Suns, Bucks. None of them have been able to get past the second round in the subsequent years. And do you think that the Celtics are a team that you could see back in the finals next year or even winning it all?
I
I think I
mean,
could. Oh, you
yeah,
want to go first, Daniel?
sure. But I mean, the thing is, like, we say it every year. Like, we said it last year, like, oh, the Nuggets are going to win the finals next year for sure. Like, we said it with the Bucks. They probably will win again. We said it with, like, the Lakers, like, oh, this team is so good going to the next year. Like, they definitely have a chance. And then, like, even the Raptors, like, I mean, before Kawhi got traded, obviously, like, this team is destined for greatness or something. So, I mean, see, I think they can for sure run it back, but something always seems to happen. Like I feel like next year we'll see teams like the Timberwolves. They're gonna be what obviously even better than this year potentially, just with the chemistry with Rob Dillingham coming into the team, which we'll talk about later. But um, I think they could at the end of the day. But at the same time, people still talk about how they didn't have the like hardest run to the finals. You played the Pacers, which not a bad team, but again, not a very experienced team. They played Miami without Jimmy Butler for the entire series. We all know how close their battles get when Jimmy Butler's healthy with the last few years. All of their series going to game seven. And then they had the Cavs where Donovan Mitchell was out for what, 2 games? Jared Allen was out for like 4 of them. So
Yeah,
they never really played a full healthy team. So it's hard to tell.
I mean, I think when it comes to can this team be a dynasty, I think it's less of can the Celtics be a dynasty and is anyone in the East going to rise up and stop them? I think the East is particularly weak right now. You have the Bucks, but I honestly am not that big a fan of the Dame and Giannis combo. I just don't see it working out as much just because Dame is a more shoot first guard. You have the Sixers, which as much as I love them, they just don't have the pieces to contend right now. Their forward game is absolutely atrocious. I don't know who our two guards going to be, and their guards personally can't match up with Derek White or Drew Holiday right now. Maxi's not good enough defensively for either of those jobs. And then the one team that you're looking at right now is the Knicks. You know, the power of friendship Villanova Knicks team. They've got McHale, they've got Josh Hart. It's a very well-rounded team. And truth be told, I think that team could do some damage. But again, my issue there is coming from the coaching, actually. I think Tom Thibodeau is going to end up running that team into the ground. You know how much he loves to play his players. This might be the first year Mikal Bridges doesn't play every game. He might not be available because Thibodeau, again, 48 minutes a night for the entire season, 82 games plus playoffs. So while the Knicks could be a team to stop them, it all comes down to really, for me, can Tom Thibodeau figure out how to get the best out of his players and not do what we saw last year, which was get them so bruised and battered they couldn't make it to the playoffs?
Yeah, that was also a really good point because just seeing every night Josh, even like players like Josh Hart, who of course he's one of their top players, but he's not their best player, and he's playing 48 minutes a night for 4 games, and then he has like you said, injuries like that. It was like an ab injury, rib injury,
Yeah,
and he had to
something.
like sit out. So it was like I don't know. Especially now with having Mikal Bridges, you have to get your bench involved. Just looking at their roster, they have a super deep roster. Like I guess on their bench, they have like a Precious Achoa, they have Alec Burks, Divincenzo. Like you don't even know what their starting line is going to be next year, and also knowing, not knowing actually what they're going to do with Julius Randle in the offseason. So I think, yeah, like you said, Tom Thibodeau really has to just use his deep roster to its full advantage because just seeing this roster, there's probably like 10, 11 guys that can make an impact. Like we saw like that couple game stretch with Miles McBride just coming out and playing really good basketball. Like who knows? And he's not getting paid much at all. He's getting paid 1.8 million a year. So you never know when someone can step up. And I think Tom Thibodeau just has to trust his bench players more to execute. Maybe have like, especially with that Villanova team, having like, either Brunson or Mikal Bridges or Josh Hart on the floor for like maybe like 10 to 12 minute rotations and kind of subbing them off, except for like the beginning of halves,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah.
Yeah, but I guess getting back to the point, if we're not convinced by the East, I guess, is there anyone in the West that you could see taking them down? Do you think the Nuggets can make some moves in free agency, bolster their roster, and get back to the finals, or even someone like the Timberwolves, as Daniel mentioned? Do you think that those teams, maybe even the Lakers, do you think teams like that could pose a threat to this Celtic squad?
I think they could. And a team that I'm actually pretty high on as of one of their recent acquisitions, which we will talk about later. I think that the Pelicans could be a dark horse team, in my opinion, to actually do some damage. I do really like the way that they match up just from top to bottom against a lot of teams that you're going to see. DeJounte Murray, pretty good two guard. You have Herb Jones, who was in the running for Depoy. Brandon Ingram, tall guy. He can play small forward. He can guard basically, I wouldn't say 1 through 5, but he can guard most of your roster. You got Zion, obviously, the star of that team. You got Valanciunas, provided he comes back after free agency. I think that team matches up incredibly soundly. I think the way that you have to beat the Celtics is you're not going to beat them as an offensive juggernaut. You got to be a good enough defensive team. I think the Timberwolves could have done it if they made it out the West. Obviously, they didn't. Mavs stopped that one. But I think you're going to be seeing a defensive team be the one to take down the Celtics. So I'm looking at the Pelicans. The Lakers, maybe. I don't really know. JJ Redick as the head coach. Again, we'll probably cover that later. But Timberwolves, Lakers, Pelicans, these are all teams I could see doing something.
For sure. I think also, I mean, obviously the Nuggets like being NBA champions. I mean, I think now that the Timberwolves beat them and now it was kind of like Timberwolves Mavericks for a long time and then the finals, everyone kind of forgot about the Nuggets. Like, although the Nuggets lost to the Timberwolves team who played really, really well in that series and still beat them, and the Nuggets still almost beat them with not playing their best basketball. Like, the Nuggets can definitely make another run to the finals because they have the team. I guess
They have the best
most
player in the
year,
world. Yeah.
yeah, they have Jokic and Jamal
Arguably.
Murray and
Wait. Let's get
We're not
it.
going to get into that. We're not going to.
Wait, no. Let's get it. Arguably, who do you have
Arguably.
above Nikola Jokic
Arguably. I
right
think
now in
Jokic,
2024?
right now, yeah, it's very much arguable. I mean, my big thing is this is just me personally.
Don't say Embiid, by the way. Don't
I'm
say
not going to
Embiid.
say Embiid. No.
Okay.
I think one of the best traits you can have is availability. So no, I'm not going to say Joel Embiid.
Okay, good.
But it's just I'm a guy who really likes defense, and so my top player needs to be able to defend incredibly well. And so for me, it's Giannis, just because of the impact he can bring both offensively, defensively. He's improved his jumper. So it's not like a clear-cut thing. I'm just a guy who likes defensive-minded players more than offensive-minded players. And so Giannis is just, in my opinion, the best player in the world.
Okay. But then on your point of availability, Giannis has not been there for the past 2 playoffs. He's been injured in both first-round series.
I get
And
it.
Nikola Jokic has been healthy throughout. Does that maybe put him over the edge? He's also won an MVP, won a championship.
I mean, he's definitely pushing. I think that Jokic right now, in my personal opinion, is the best offensive big we've ever seen. I think that his mix of passing, his mix of decision making, and he's an underrated defender, very smart defender, in my opinion. It's just the way that Giannis can really like take over a game. And it's just my personal opinion. I just like watching a dude come down and smack the ball at the sky like LeBron. But yeah, I think Jokic definitely has a clear argument. I think if you want to go right now, like who would I build a team around? I'd probably say Giannis just because I think I have more options. But if there's a better player, you can easily make an argument for Jokic. I'm not going to say it's not close.
Okay.
I think it also comes down to the bigs because the guards like Luca, we obviously saw him in the finals. Like the defense was not there for sure.
Oh my God, dude.
So
Traffic.
yeah, so you can't put him in. See, you can definitely put him in the conversation for like top 10 in the league, maybe top 5, but he's definitely not the best just because of that reason. If Luca had good defense, he would arguably be the best player in the league because scoring wise, he's a machine. So yeah, I agree with Roman about Giannis. I think he would be the best guy in the league right now.
Well, I guess on the note of the Mavs, right? Obviously, they were the other team in the finals, and they did lose. Where do you think the Mavs go from here? What can they do, I guess, in this free agency to improve themselves and hopefully make another run to the finals?
I don't honestly. I think the issue lies a little bit in Kyrie. I mean, we all saw that finals performance. It was atrocious. We can all agree on that.
Yeah.
But I think the Mavs' main issue is they lack defense at every level. I think Luka is a horrible defender. He's lazy even in the finals, and I don't think that he's gonna. Yeah, Luka's just not a great defender. We all know that. Kyrie, not a great defender. I don't think they have a single like top tier guy that I'd say he's an above average defender on that roster, and I think that really makes up the issue because when you play a team like the Celtics, who has 1 to 5 arguable top 15 players at every position, you're just not going to be able to do much. If a team is good defensively, then they'll be able to basically neutralize that team. So I think they need to find some defense. I know people might come after me for this one, but guys like Dylan Brooks could actually make an impact. I know he doesn't have the best track record, but Brooks is a solid defender who made some solid contributions on the Rockets. So I can see guys like that actually putting in some aid.
Yeah, and I feel like the reason why they beat teams like the Timberwolves and the Thunder, their offense was clicking not just for Luka and Kyrie, but for, like I said before, the role players like PJ Washington scoring like 30 a few times, like Derek Lively Jr., um, Daniel Gafford. But in the finals, there was such a big downgrade. Like, although Luka was scoring a lot every night, like you said, Kyrie had a really bad series. And then, in my opinion, other than those two, their offense is like non-existent. That's what cost them. So I feel like it wasn't even defense that led them to the finals. So I feel like even if you don't shoot the ball well, and like like you said, if you defend well, then they would have a really good chance of getting back to the finals next year.
Yeah, actually, kind of on that note, I think that they're obviously getting Tim Hardaway. We're talking about Tim Hardaway is going to be gone.
Yep.
Like, that trade is confirmed to happen. So he wasn't even a big contributor by the time the finals came around. But I think what would have been really nice, and obviously this can't happen now, would have been if the Mavericks could have gotten someone like Mikal Bridges, who could have been that 3D player behind Kyrie and Luka and guard the opposing team's best player. I think Derek Lively is going to develop as a player that'll only help them.
Agreed.
But as you said, right, they need to pick up some sort of, scrappy defensive players that can come off the bench, play for 15 to 20 minutes, or be in that, small forward position in the starting lineup and bolster that defense. Because in the finals, they got obliterated.
Labs, man.
Like,
Yeah.
that was embarrassing.
That's why I think the Timberwolves really, have it good for the next few years, because Jaden McDaniels, like, he's not the best player at all, but he stood out defensively. He's probably a top 5 defensive player in the league next year. I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the running for defensive player of the year. I mean, he made that impact, and like especially against the Nuggets, like he locked down all their defenders. I think against the Mavs, it was just a little too short of an effort. But that's why, and they're young, so like you said, going around scorers like Edwards and Cat, like they're definitely set. I feel like they should make a couple moves for their bench just to increase their depth, but having someone like Jaden McDaniels is someone that I think every team needs, to be honest.
Yeah. I guess I'll ask one more question about this finals. And it kind of speaks to legacies, right? A huge thing that people harped on Jason Tatum, and I guess even Jaylen Brown for, was they'd always make the Eastern Conference Finals every year. They'd make the finals. They made that finals in 2022, but they would never get that ring. But now they have that ring. So where does that like bump them up in terms of like all-time player discussions to any tier? Does that put them near someone like Giannis? Or no, are they still kind of a tier below and stay where they are?
I think that it does. I mean, obviously getting that type of hardware is going to bring you up, especially for Jaylen Brown with the finals MVP. But I don't think it's anywhere near Giannis. I don't think they're comparable, because just simply put, what Giannis did and what Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown did, you can just hear it in what I'm saying right now. There's one player mentioned when I'm talking about Giannis, and there's two when I'm talking about JB and JT. That was not exactly as much of a solo effort, like with Giannis, who basically willed that team to the finals. He was clear their best player, finals MVP, willed them through the regular season, the finals, no real lulls. He came to play the entire time. On the other hand, the Celtics didn't really have a key standout guy that you could say was their best. You can make arguments for it being Drew Holiday. You can make arguments for it being Kristaps. You can make arguments for it being Jaylen Brown. You can make arguments for it being Jason Tatum. I've heard arguments for Derek White. Like, you have 5 guys top to bottom that are just so good that it kind of devalues this ring. Like, it's not really as impressive as a Giannis ring, or even when LeBron willed his team to the finals that one year with, I don't even know how to pronounce his name, that one big center on the Cavs, Ilgauskas or something. He willed that team of bums to the finals. They might have lost, but I think that does more for LeBron's legacy than JT's ring does for him, in my opinion.
So you see this ring more as of like a 2004 Detroit Pistons, or as like a team effort. You had 5 guys who contributed almost equally in a way.
Absolutely. I think it doesn't hurt anyone's legacies. Obviously, it only bolsters them, but I think it just bolsters everyone equally. Like, just a little bit, it adds to your resume. You played on a super team. You didn't play again. You played on a super team against a very weak defense you played on a super team. You smoked everybody. You are a good team, and you will probably go down as one of the best teams of all time. But none of these guys will go down as some of the best players of all time.
or like the best finals runs. Even.
Yes,
Runs.
I definitely agree.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess let's head over to the NBA draft since we're kind of entering that stage. That happened last Wednesday, I believe. And I think that first of all, one thing about this draft generally was I was kind of at a loss for how many players I didn't know. And like not to say that I don't follow the NBA close enough to know these players, but like I didn't see any of these guys having kind of the same media coverage that we got last year with Wemby and some of those other top 5 picks, right? Outside of maybe like Donovan Clingan, Zach Edey, and Alex Sarr, I didn't like truly know any of these people's household names. And I kind of want to ask you guys if you felt that this draft in particular was weaker than previous year's drafts, just overall.
I think it was, but at the same time, just looking at the names drafted later in the draft, I feel like it was a pretty deep draft, to be honest with you. Like seeing guys like Kyle Filipowski drop all the way to the second round, having guys who made impacts for their, respectful teams in college basketball fall in the second round, like 47th, like getting Antonio Reeves, Harrison Ingram for Chapel Hill. Like, I think it was a very weak draft in terms of overall and also in terms of the better players. Like first pick, you had Zachary Reese-Share. I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad player, but I mean, we've seen first picks in the last 5 years. You've had Wemby. I mean, even guys like DeAndre Ayton, like he's not the best player in the league. He probably won't be at all. He probably won't even be top 10, top 20. But I mean, at least we know his name to this day. I feel like a lot of guys here will probably fall out of, being popular within like 4 to 5 years, in my opinion, at least. From being like, I don't think any of these guys will be like, or at least some of these guys will be like star players for their team.
I think I gotta agree. Unfortunately for me, I like a lot of the guys in this class. I think that there are going to be a lot of guys who make impacts, and I think the real thing that you're going to see is I don't think the top teams, the top draft picks at least, are really going to pan out as well as we think. I think the later round picks, though, like we mentioned before, they're going to do good because they could be role players. They were stars on their college teams, and not only were they stars on the college teams, they're going to be getting good development from good players. Example for me personally, I think Rob Dillingham has the potential to be the best person coming out this class for the situation he's in. He's got Kyrie, he's got Anthony Edwards. He's not going to be asked to do too much. He's going to be asked to learn, and I think that's all you kind of need. But just addressing the deepness and the quality of this draft, I followed college basketball pretty closely. I think I lost who I knew everyone's name at when the Hornets picked that dude out of France. I'd never seen him before,
Yes,
never
I
heard of him
know.
before.
I know. A
He
lot of my
just,
friends were texting me about that one.
yeah,
I
that
mean,
one was confusing to me. We didn't know who the number one pick was going to be till a few hours before the draft, until when that Alex Sarr report came out, they declined a workout. It was just a very confusing draft. And this draft, I think, has a lot of depth, but there was never a clear standout player. Players fell that we didn't expect. Players got picked early that we didn't expect. It was I think everyone here has the potential to be a solid role player, with a
mhm,
few exceptions of people being like that Derek White level of star. I don't see any like major superstars in this class, but I would love to be proven wrong.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess now we'll get into some of the specific picks within this draft. I am personally a Lakers fan, and the way that people talk about this draft, you would think that the 55th pick of this draft was the first pick. Bronny James was in fact drafted to the Lakers to play with LeBron, and I want to know your guys' thoughts on that. Do you think it was a move from the Lakers to keep LeBron James? And do you think it was LeBron James exercising his leverage onto Rob Pelinka and the team? Or do you think it was actually like, they took one of the best players available?
I mean,
Um,
looking at Instagram, like seeing what
oh
Rob
god.
Pelinka had to say about Bronny, like, I mean, I guess of course when you draft someone, you're gonna talk positive about them. You're gonna say something bad about them once you draft them. It's kind of hard because honestly, in my opinion, seeing players. I mean, I guess I'm being a little bit biased because me and Roman were at a camp at Chapel Hill this past week, but like seeing guys like Armando Bacot and Cormac Ryan like just being signed to like Exhibit 10 deals, I think they're both better players than Bronny. Um, and even that guy from Oakland, Jack Golke, like the way he played, I mean, maybe something a little extreme because he attempted like 348 threes and like 8 twos in last season in college. But even a guy like him, I think they're better. And not because I hate Bronny. Like I've followed Southern Cal like football and a little bit of basketball, but I think he just needs to develop, and I just don't agree with where his agent's coming from, Rich Paul from Clutch, because he's saying like, oh, like if you guys draft Bronny, like it's gonna be the Lakers or the Suns, or he's gonna play in Australia, and then after that, saying like, oh, if you draft him, like there's gonna be no two-way contract option. Like I want Bronny on the main team. I feel like that's a little bit off. I feel like since LeBron is on the team, it's obviously easier for Bronny to learn because I mean his dad is this arguably the GOAT. But at the same time, like I think the best decision for Bronny should have been to go to the G League for a couple of years, like even not going back to college to USC or Ohio State or wherever he was going to go to. But I think going to the G League for 2 to 3 years would have been perfect for him because he would have learned in the G League. He would have played with guys that are bigger, older, and he would have. I think he would have done well there. Um, and at the same time, just he's so young still. He would have been going into the sophomore year of college, and you're gonna be like probably sitting on the bench for 2 years, honestly, before you get minutes. I think going to the G League, playing the majority of your season there, maybe getting called up to the main team for like 5 to 10 games would be ideal for him. That would be the best place for him to get better. And I think, listen, if you really want LeBron just to play with LeBron, like sure, call him up for opening night, throw that lob, get that media, get those views, and then go back to where you really need to develop, and then come back.
I mean, I think personally from my end, number one, it's gonna be amazing. I think the biggest dilemma with Bronny right now, though, aside from what he's gonna call LeBron, I mean, is he on a first name basis? Is he gonna call him Pop? Is he gonna call him Unc? What's he gonna say?
Gotta be
But I think the
Bron.
biggest dilemma for Bronny is he's just so raw. Like, not a lot of points. There's the heart issue that we've been talking about for a while. Came off the bench at USC. I don't see this as a horrible move. What I do see this as though is fantastic work from Bronny's agent. The talks of him going to Australia and the talks of him only wanting a two-way, I'm 95% sure are false. I think Bronny will sign a two-way with the Lakers. It's just as much leverage as you can get to bring Bronny to LA, which worked. They did what they wanted to. And now I think all we're going to see is Bronny will probably go to the G League. I think what you're talking about will be absolutely right. I definitely think you'll see him called up for some media stuff. I think probably the game against the Warriors is when you're going to see him get called up. The NBA will want him called up there. He might get a few minutes in against the Warriors, so you can get the LeBron and his son face off against Curry kind of type of rivalry legacy thing. Or you'll see him play against somebody real, like young LeBron and his son play against Victor Wembanyama. Like, he will be brought up for marketing, and it is pretty obvious that the NBA is doing this somewhat for viewership, and that is partially what it is. But I also think that Bronny has the potential to be one of the better players in this class in a few years. I mean, he's LeBron's son. He's got crazy athletics. He's got crazy basketball IQ. He's been trained by some of the best possible personal trainers in the world. The only problem for him right now is he's too young. And you just kind of have to figure at that point, like, what do? You just have to kind of just give him time to develop. And I think that's his biggest problem.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with Roman on that one because as someone who does goes to USC, I got to see Bronny firsthand on that team. And just to give you some perspective, that team in general was badly coached. It wasn't a great team, was not cohesive. It had a mix of like some older players who were in their fourth, fifth years, and then some younger guys like Bronny and Isaiah Collier. And you can see even with Isaiah Collier himself, right? He was the number one player, number one prospect coming out of high school, dropped all the way to the 30th pick or 29th pick in the draft after a season at USC. So I don't think that, people point to, 4.8 points, like 2 rebounds, 1 assist per game. And they're like, how are you drafting this guy to the NBA? I don't think his college career was necessarily indicative of, how he could actually play. And that just generally people like this Lakers draft was done. Putting all the LeBron stuff aside, because that definitely, had a huge play in it, right? Keeping LeBron James for another few years so you can compete and hopefully win at the highest level is definitely something you want to do. But Bronny himself, as you said, is a very raw prospect who could, he could be a project. He could be someone that you transform by sending him to the G League, bring him back and, I don't think he's ever going to be a star in this league or even a fringe star. I think he's more of a role player, 3-and-D, or not 3, but 3-and-D player. Yeah. But let's move on to talk about some other drafts. One notable pick was Jared McCain was drafted by your Sixers, Roman, and I want to get your thoughts on this pick. He was super pumped up. I want to know if you were too.
I was not. I was not for one key reason. I went into this draft saying if we can get Jared McCain, it will be a win. And so you would think I'd be happy. The problem is you have Dalton Connect on the board at pick 16. And the biggest flaw with this team for years has been our wings. We're going to really run out here. Like, even if we say hypothetically sign Paul George to play the 2 or to play the 3, even, like, our wing depth is horrible. We're going to lose Tobias Harris, thank God. But then we're going to have Kelly Oubre play the 4? Or is it going to be Paul? I don't know what this team is doing. Jared McCain is 6'2". Maxey is around 6'2". McCain is not great defensively. Maxey isn't the best defender. So is he going to play he's not playing the shooting guard. We're not going to roll out there with 2 offensively minded guards who both are going to be looking to score. Like, I just don't get the team doesn't fit. It doesn't really mesh. I think Connect would have been great. It would have given some much needed spacing. You could have run a pick and roll with Embiid, Maxey, Connect, great 3-point shooter in the corner. I get it. I get the draft concerns behind Connect. I think the reason why he fell is because of his poor defense. And I understand that. I get it. You might be worried about the defensive side. But when you have a guy with that much talent and your biggest issue is a wing, and instead you choose to draft an undersized guard, I don't understand it when Connect was on the board. I don't think it's the worst pick. I think that he could pan out, and I would really love to see him pan out. I would love to have him be a great player for us, but I just don't think that he was the right move with who was on the board.
I see, I see. Well, do you think that this move could have been done because they're expecting to bring Paul George on board, play him at the 3 or 4, and they wanted to get another guard to bolster that starting lineup?
I think so. I think it's possible. I kind of get it, but I also could have said, like, the NBA is becoming more and more positionless as time moves on. I would have just taken Connect and moved him to the 2. He's not exactly the greatest defender already. You could also take Paul George and move Paul George to the 2. Like, there's so many better options than drafting a undersized guard. That's my biggest concern. It's McCain's size at 6'2". Where will he play? Where will he fit on this roster?
For sure, for sure. Daniel, your team, Toronto Raptors. You want to talk a little
Yeah,
about their
yeah,
draft?
sure. We had a lot of picks. We had 4 picks in the draft this year. I mean, obviously it's different. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of hard because I didn't expect any of these players to get drafted. I think similar to what Roman said about just the way he kind of thought about the draft, being happy about Jared McCain, then seeing Dalton Connect. I think our first pick, Jacoby Walter from Baylor, was great. He's a 3-point shooter, which is one of our weaknesses. He was great as a freshman, but he's a good dribbler. He's pump faking. He drives well, but he also needs to work on finishing. That's his biggest weakness. But I think with the amount of bigs that we have on the team, you shouldn't have to worry too much about that. But going into this, we had the first pick of the second round, and we had Kyle Filipowski on the board, from Duke. And honestly, I thought we were going to get him. I was pretty excited. And then we drafted Jonathan Mojbo from San Francisco State. Very unexpected. I didn't follow the draft too much in terms of my team, just because I really did not know what to expect. But then kind of looking at his analysis afterwards, just learning more about him, he's a very, very good defender, apparently. He's a great he's very aggressive, which is what we need because a lot of our guys are slim, but moreover, he could help with our chemistry because apparently he's been really close with Scotty Barnes since they were kids. Like he was with Scotty when he was drafted. He went to Toronto with Scotty when he was drafted. He met everybody there, and looking at his comparisons, he's compared to guys like Bam Adebayo and Kyle O'Quinn. So becoming a strong all-around defender would definitely go a long way and putting his place. But also what I like about the draft was variety, and we drafted Jamal Sheed, the star player from Houston. I think the only issue I have with him is that he's 6 feet tall, so he's pretty short, but his biggest strength is his perimeter defense. And again, I think our biggest weaknesses were 3-point shooting and defense, like rebounding and perimeter defense last year. Even going back to, I know we don't have the same team at all. I don't think we have anybody from the championship team, but in 2019, like especially in like the first couple games, like we let Steph Curry and Clay get so many threes, and like I think it's kind of translated over and over to this season. So it's good that we have someone with good perimeter defense. He's good at navigating screens, just watching him, and he forces a lot of turnovers too. So he's a good playmaker. So honestly, I hope he can turn into someone like Trey Jones, maybe a Chris Dunn, like an old Chris Dunn when he was solid in the league. And then the last pick, we did like a classic Raptors pick, drafting a center from Cameroon. We've had like four of them on the team. I feel like he's actually a power forward, but he's 6'10". I mean, he's from Africa in the NBA Academy, and that's where he went to school. But he's the youngest player in the draft. He was born on December 30th of 2005. Um, but the only issue I have is he played 3 games for NBA Academy Africa. I mean, he averaged 13 points, 9 rebounds, 3 blocks though. Um, and I think, his big thing is he's really raw but he needs development. So I think going to the G League would be best for him. I think he's not going to be on our main team maybe in 4 years. But I wouldn't say I like really love or really dislike our draft class this year. I think we drafted a lot of variety on this squad, and I'm just curious to see how it's going to translate to next year because we have a lot of young players, and I don't think we have a vet and yet that really stands out. You could argue RJ Barrett, but I mean he's still in his first like what 5, 6 years of the league. So
Yeah, I don't think RJ Barrett is
it,
considered that yet.
yeah,
But kind of on that
exactly.
note of your entire squad, right? You guys signed 2 players to massive contracts, that being Scotty Barnes and Emmanuel Quickly, where Scotty Barnes got what, a $270 million deal, I believe, and then Emmanuel Quickly followed soon after with a $175 million deal, both max extensions. Do you think those contracts were deserved? Because a lot of people, I mean, Scotty Barnes, sure, he's your centerpiece, he's the guy they're trying to build around, but a lot of people were wondering why they were willing to give Emmanuel Quickly, of all people, so much money when he was just kind of only getting into his coming into his own with the Knicks last season before being traded.
Yeah, I have the same questions too. I mean, I think Scotty Barnes, it makes total sense because Masai Ujiri wants to develop around him. And I mean, I guess the Raptors now think that Scotty is the guy that we're going to build around, that we're going to go to make a deep playoff run. And sure, Scotty improved a little bit last season. I mean, he was an all-star, like reserve, like replacement, but I'm kind of surprised by Emmanuel Quickly. I mean, it really just sounds like they want Quickly and Scotty like to be their centerpieces, and just scrolling on Instagram when that happened, seeing a photo of Barrett, Scotty Barnes, and Quickly saying these 3 guys are worth 520 million, which is 46% of our salary cap. I'm a little surprised considering that we've only seen Quickly and RJ in Raptors jerseys for like 2 months.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been the best 2 months because we haven't done too much. Like I went to the Hornets Raptors game here in Charlotte and the Raptors lost to the Hornets. So I'm still kind of confused on what direction Masai Ujiri wants to take. I do think the Raptors made a good trade getting Davion Mitchell for Jalen McDaniels, because I didn't feel like McDaniels made too big of an impact with Davion Mitchell. He really is a good asset just because for the same reason as Jamal Sheed, because of defense. I mean, he's one of the better on-ball defenders in the league, and he was a good 6 man for the Kings. So honestly, I think we stole from the Kings, but we also got Sasha Vesenkov, who just signed to go play in Europe. So that's kind of a bummer because we kind of lost out on that. But we got the 45th pick, which ended up being Jamal Sheed. So I think it was a good trade. I think, like I said, we need the experience. So I think we need to sign some sort of veteran in the offseason because that will help us. Like someone like Kyle Lowry, maybe bring Kyle Lowry back to the Raptors, back where it all started. So could be a good idea.
Yeah, I think the Raptors are definitely in the stage of just kind of they're still in that rebuild stage. I know they gave the contracts to their young stars, but they're still definitely rebuilding. They're not looking for like a playoff run or even maybe a playoff appearance next year. Maybe a play-in game, but I think anything above like a 10 seed would be considered a good season for them. But let's move on to the NBA free agency, which as of right now started 49 minutes ago. Nothing crazy has happened so far, but there's a lot of crazy potential around this free agency is what I would say. Just to kind of cover a few things quickly, we know LeBron is basically confirmed to go back to the Lakers after the drafting of Bronny. But there is something interesting there where he is eligible for this 3-year, $170 million contract, which would be the largest of his career. But he says that he's willing to take a pay cut of around $16-17 million per year if the Lakers can draft some, or not draft, sorry, could trade for someone like a Jonas Valanciunas, James Harden, or Klay Thompson. And I want to know your guys' thoughts on that. Do you think that
Oh,
he should those are the right players to be targeting for the Lakers? Do you think that LeBron should be willing to take more of a pay cut, regardless of the player itself? What
I
do you
think I think the pay cut's smart just to get someone because I mean LeBron's so rich. I don't think he needs to get paid too much money for the rest of his career. But also because I mean Klay Thompson, I mean I've heard the rumors, but I feel like he might be involved in like a Paul George trade if the Warriors had to get him. See, actually the Warriors, I think it was today, I think the Warriors or some, a couple of, sites posted that the Warriors offered a huge package, like something like CP3, Clay, Moses Moody, and Jonathan Kuminga, and like a first round pick for Paul George, and like the Clippers like declined it or
They
something.
declined that?
That's
Something like that. Um, I mean
that's a
that's what
crazy
Woj,
package.
yeah, that's what Woj said. I'm pretty sure. I remember seeing it. So I mean, it's pretty weird that they would decline that. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't know.
I can't see.
Roman, what do you think? Klay Thompson to the Lakers, is that a good move or?
I don't like it. I don't like it in my opinion. I think the best move that they have that was named there, Bron had a really good point in Jonas Valanciunas. I think that the biggest thing you need to do right now is bring Anthony Davis back to his natural position of the four. He plays better at the four. The matchups are better at the four. If you can get a genuine center in Valanciunas, who I think is a great option and can really contribute to this team, put 80 to the four, Valanciunas at the five. Your starting lineup would be what? Who's their point guard right now?
D'Lo's back, so D'Lo would
Oh,
probably.
D'Lo would be back. Yeah, you could run D'Lo, Reeves, LeBron. That's a championship level team, in my opinion. I think D'Lo, Reeves, LeBron, AD, and Valanciunas, and then a solid bench with Vanderbilt, Rui. I do really like Rui Hachimura. I think he can make some pretty big impact. I was about to say Bronny, but we know that's not really gonna.
Yeah. No, but I just found the post. The score posted it. It said the Warriors reportedly offered the Clippers some combination of Andrew Wiggins, Moses Moody, Chris Paul, Jonathan Kuminga, and a first round pick before Paul George decided to opt out of his $48.7 million player option.
I'm surprised they put Kuminga in that deal because
Yeah, because Kuminga is one of their young guns.
yeah, like why are you trading for a 34-year-old Paul George or trying to at least? I
I
guess
I
they
mean,
could
guess.
give Steph one more championship run, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I
that's
don't
what I
I
was
that's
don't
out the
thinking.
see
window.
why selling your future is a good idea either.
I think the thing is with this Warriors move, I know where recently, I'm pretty sure, they just released Chris Paul. They're freeing up cap now. I think they're going to just try and go aggressively sign him, which basically spells the end of Klay Thompson in Golden State, right? I mean, I think we can all agree that the time of the Splash Bros is over. We're entering a new era for Golden State, an era that their fans have not been through in a very long time, decades at this point. And I don't know if it's the right one. I don't know. I really do not know if this team is built to win. They're in this very weird stage where they have young talent, Trace Jackson Davis, guy I really like, but they also are trying to capitalize on Steph's window. So you're trading your future to try to capitalize on a window when you should be building for that future, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
it's
like do
gonna
you
be
think
hard.
there you go.
Oh, but no, I was just saying like it's gonna be so hard because I mean Steph's what now? He's 30, he's going like he's pushing like 36 now, right? Or he is 36, something like that. He's getting old.
But
And
he's still a great player. Like he's still
exactly,
arguably
yeah.
top five
But
player.
I feel like yeah, like what you were saying, I don't understand why the Warriors are trying to trade away their future, especially because like in I understand the win now situation, but in 5 years, if Curry's gone, if Clay's gone, if Draymond's gone, like who are you gonna have? Like I think Kaminga should be that guy that you should have because he's gonna really develop. I wouldn't say he's gonna be a star in 3 years, but he's definitely gonna be a really good player. So they should definitely keep him and not trade him away. I would understand Clay Thompson or Draymond because they're older, they're not playing as better. I think Steph, I mean, obviously you have to keep Steph because he's playing at an insane level still. But yeah, you've seen like Clay Thompson, like play worse, and then when people ask him why he's playing worse, he holds up the four. Like, so I mean, yeah, they should.
Also, just like the fact that it's Paul George for me is
Yeah,
another thing. Like it's not like you're trading for a LeBron James. You're trading for Paul George. Paul George is consistently injured towards the end of the season, not really available in the playoffs. And if
and
he
he's
is available,
34.
he's not been the best player in a playoffs by any means. Since those early Pacer days, he has had a lot of disappointing series. In OKC was very disappointing. In that 2020 Western Conference semifinals was disappointing. These past few years has been injured. So I don't think that Paul George is gonna, like, you shouldn't look at Paul George to be the guy to like save your franchise in a way and really bring you up from what, a play-in team to a top seed that competes for a championship. I just don't think that's a realistic expectation.
I do agree. And I also got to talk about like playoff performances. Playoff Paul George is an absolute no show most of the time. And Curry can offset that. Curry has had some great performances, but Curry has made most of his finals runs with a set of talented teammates, but teammates that he has chemistry with, Clay and Draymond, that core championship roster that kind of builds off each other. And it's gonna be kind of kind of interesting to see where this goes. But yeah, I don't really have a lot of faith in the team.
Yeah. Paul George, I don't think is the guy to go through. I think the Warriors should keep what they have. I mean, maybe trade Clay for some draft picks or something. With some of these teams that have high cap space, like the Magic, I would say. I just don't think that getting an aging star like this reminds me of in the late 90s when the Rockets added like Charles Barkley and Scottie Pippen to that Hakeem Olajuwon team. Like it's not really you're trying to build a team with players that are past their primes, and that doesn't really work out.
I feel like the Magic could do it though, because I mean obviously a great year. They improved so much. They almost beat the Cavs, almost got a chance against the Celtics, but I can't think of like a big vet on their team. So I feel like just having Clay there for the vet like experience would be great for them. The thing is, I don't know who they would trade. I mean, they have to find some way to trade like someone not as good. I mean, it'll be hard, but it could be good for the Magic. I think it could be pretty beneficial.
I
Yeah.
think it could be beneficial. I would not really be a fan of that move. I mean, he could play for Gary Harris, I guess, but you're such a young team right now, and I don't think spending your big money on and probably big assets too, because if it's going to be a trade, we all agree that you're giving up a lot in whatever kind of trade it is to get Paul George. So I think personally, it's just not worth the move for the Magic to mess up what is already a team that has great chemistry and great potential and will likely grow over the offseason, and then squander all your money, set yourself up in cap hell. Because we have to acknowledge, with a young team, you're going to have to re-sign these guys soon. They're going to need contracts soon. I think Paolo's going to need his contract soon. You can't afford to give players like Paul George major contracts. We're going to have to play stars who are going to be the cornerstone and face of your franchise for a very long time.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of speaking of big trade hauls, on that note, one of the kind of surprising trade hauls for me was that Mikal Bridges trade, which we referenced earlier, where the Knicks gave up 4 first-round picks for that guy. 4, which is kind of insane if you really think about it, right? Like, he was a guy who was a third option on the Phoenix Suns, was more of a role player than a star in that team, brought into Brooklyn just because by the nature of the KD trade, and was, you know, made the first option there. Didn't really have a good season past the first half. The Nets lost a lot of games, lost like 50 games, I think. They weren't even close to the playoffs. Mikal Bridges didn't have a great particular year, and they give up 4 first-round picks for him. And while I think the move was definitely good, it kind of surprised me, especially since they kept OG Anunoby, who I think has a very similar skill set to Mikal Bridges on the defensive end, and then also on the offensive side of the ball, and kind of where they fit in as a team. So I was just kind of confused why you would overpay so much for a player that probably, if, you know, assuming Randall and Brunson are both healthy, and even Anunoby, he's probably your 4th or 3rd option most nights, right? I just think it was a little strange for me.
I think it couldn't, help with their chemistry. I think it was a solid trade on their part, but I think giving away that many first round picks was kind of weird. I'm not sure how many they have left over after that. I think for the Nets, obviously, it was tough losing their star player, but getting all those picks should definitely put them at a good place in the next like 3 to 4 years. It's just what they do with the rest of the roster that will be interesting, especially re-signing Claxton to that $100 million deal for 4 years. So it seems
Well, I
like
don't think the Nets are going to need, like, they're just trying to tank.
Yeah.
I still think it's a good trade. I will die on the hill that's a good trade. The Knicks still have a decent amount of assets. And more importantly, I don't think those picks are going to be anything of value. I think this Knicks team is going to continue to be good. They have a very solid core. I think it's a team that could potentially compete with Boston in the East. I think they are easily the second best team in the East right now. I think it goes Boston, them. You can kind of call them 1A, 1B. And yes, they give up picks, but they still have a solid amount of picks in the next 3 years. I think they have about 5 in the next 3 years. So I think they should be fine. I think it might be a slight setback. You know, you gave up a lot, but the team chemistry is going to be there. You're going to have great depth, and you're basically going to be able to out hustle and outwork teams. And ultimately, I think that's going to be the deciding factor.
But do you think that, see, for me, I feel like this trade wasn't, for me at least, I don't think it was a great trade. Like, I think I see the upside in getting a Mikal Bridges type of player, but just because I mean, they anyway re-signed OG Anunoby, and in addition to that, they gave up they actually gave up 5 first-round picks for him. That just seems like a lot for a player that you almost already have. Like, why couldn't you go out there and maybe, I feel like their center, they could have, if they could have targeted someone like Jonas Valanciunas, that would have been pretty good.
I'm sorry, but personally, I don't care. Like, I think that this team has the pieces that they need. I don't think you need a center. You've got Mitchell Robinson. You have to just bring back Hartenstein, who played solidly in the playoffs. You have Julius Randle. You can run an incredibly talented starting 5, and then another roster on your bench that can be considered some team's starting 5. They have a competent enough team to basically cycle through players. And you can see what Thibodeau's trying to build right now. He's trying to be able to have that same high-powered offense and high-powered defense that carried them without the wear and tear. You're going to be able to sub these guys back in because they're like 1A, 1B players. You're going to be able to run this quick rotation and run these guys for long stretches of time without losing when you put your bench in. It is a strategy that I am interested to see how it's going to pay off. But Mikal Bridges is the perfect fit in the New York Knicks system. A good wing, he can defend, he can shoot, doesn't need to be the first option, but can be if he needs to. And most importantly, he's always available. That's an incredibly key thing in Thibodeau's team.
I do agree with you on the availability. That is great for Thibodeau's team because, I mean, we literally see it every single playoffs, right? And this one was Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson who went out. Julius Randle was injured halfway through the season too. Thibodeau does run his players into the ground. But I still have questions about what lineups they're going to run. Are they going to do, well, Jalen, who are they going to put at the 2, right? You think they're going to put Mikal Bridges at the 2? I feel like one of those guys is going to have to be moved to the bench. And then on top of that, I have questions about how much OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges overlap. Just from a trade perspective too. And I guess the bigger thing for me that kind of goes ahead of all of this is I don't necessarily know if Jalen Brunson or Julius Randle can be the number 1 guy on a team and get them to a championship or even close to one. I don't know if that's true.
That's a hot take.
That is a scorching hot take because
Wait, you think that Jalen Brunson can lead in the East as it is currently with the Celtics, with the Bucks? You think that Jalen Brunson as a first option is better than those two teams?
I went to game
Jalen
6.
Brunson as a first option is better than those two teams.
I was there for game 6. I was there in the stands. I was there watching Jalen Brunson absolutely go to work and dissect my team in surgical fashion for 6 straight games, and then one of them in person to close out in Philly. Jalen Brunson absolutely can be a first option on a team without question.
Wait, I totally agree that he can be the first, but I'm asking, can he be the first option on a championship caliber team?
Yes, he can. Yes, he can.
Think about like, I mean, I know it's biased, but like think about the 2019 Raptors. Obviously, Kawhi stood out, but then you had guys like Pascal Siakam who broke out. Kyle Lowry had like 30 in Game 6 against the Warriors. I think Brunson can lead that type of team where Brunson is a star player, but he has like a really good supporting group. It's kind of like the Celtics this year. Obviously, you can say, "Oh, Tatum's the best player," but then you have Jaylen Brown, Porzingis. Like it can be some sort of team like that where Jalen Brunson is the outright best player, but then you have like 4 or 5 guys that are just behind him, and that could be a championship team. In my opinion.
Yeah, this team reminds me of those Warriors teams. You have Jalen Brunson, clear best player like Curry was, but he is surrounded by other talent. And the thing about that talent isn't that they're good players, but more importantly, they play off of Brunson. And that's what leads to team success. It's not their talent, it's the way that they're able to play off each other. Thibodeau's a fantastic coach. He's been able to do some great things. He's been able to bring these guys together and basically form a team that has just a great ability to mesh. And I think that's going to be the key factor.
But the other thing is, one thing about, right, Brunson was having a dominant playoff run, an all-time playoff run before it was ended in the second round, right? He was dropping, 50 won multiple games. He was going off 40 point games or something like that. But the other thing that I think we have to think about is that Randall was not playing during this time. And Julius Randle is a ball dominant player. He likes playing as the number one option. And I'm wondering, my questions, I guess, also are, how is he going to be fitting into that New York Knicks roster? Is he going to be the 1B or even a 2 to Julius Randle's 1A, 1? Or is he going to be the one is he going to be that first option?
I
And
think
how
Brunson should
Julius
be.
Randle kind of handles the game is also going to be.
I think Brunson should be the one. Honestly, no
Yeah, I
hate
mean,
to Julius Randle, but I think so.
yeah, I mean, this team won 50 games last year. They were the 2 seed. This is a very good team, a team that I think is going to be fine. And truth be told, they might just move Randall. Like, I mean, we're acting like this is a team that won't make a move like that. Randall might get moved, and it would not surprise me if or when it happens.
So you'd be fine with moving Randall to, I mean, yeah.
Absolutely.
Is he a free agent or like
No,
a
no,
trade?
Trade him. You can trade him.
He's
Yeah,
under contract.
I guess it just depends what you get in return. I would be that'd be cool to see what he gets because they like even we just saw it without Randall they almost made the conference finals and then especially if they just substitute Randall for someone better. I don't know who like what I guess if you were the Knicks GM like what would you be looking in return for Randall?
I personally, you try to get those draft picks back that you just lost in the Mikhail trade. I try to get myself because I'm assuming you're going to lose Hartenstein, so I try to get myself a quality big man. I think if you could get a quality big man and then maybe another 4 to come off the bench or be solid, you can run a lineup that looks something like Brunson at the 1. Yeah, the whole power of friendship lineup here. You'd have Brunson at the 1, DiVincenzo at the 2, Mikhail at the 3,
OG.
OG at the 4, Robinson at the 5, Hart off the bench is your 6 man.
And then
Or
you
you
have
can move Mikhail to the
Josh
shooting
Hart.
guard and then move what's it called? Hart into the starting lineup.
That's a pretty big team, the starting lineup.
Yeah, I think
Either way, you're gonna have Josh Hart or DiVincenzo off the bench. I mean, that's not bad at all.
one
I
of the
do
most
agree that team
underrated players.
defensively, defensively, that team is very good.
Yeah.
It's
And I think
very
that's how they're
good.
going to thrive. I think that's how they're going to win basketball games. I think it's
I
going to
mean,
be all
that's the Meadows philosophy generally.
Yeah.
Right. It's more of the questions on offense, I guess. Even in the Pacers series, right? The defense was still there. It was just on offense. Sometimes they couldn't pull it together when Brunson wasn't literally carrying them.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it'll be really interesting to see. I do agree with you though in the on the fact that even just on paper, they're a top 3 team in the East. I think it's them, the Bucks, and the Celtics, and in the top 3. And then the East is going through either them or the Celtics for sure. But let's move on to some other trades which happened. We discussed this kind of briefly with the Pelicans. I know, Roman, you said that was a dark horse for you out west. They traded for DeJounte Murray from the Atlanta Hawks. And I want to know what you guys think about this trade from, I guess, the perspective of, I mean, Roman, you obviously already said that you think that they're competing with this. Daniel, do you feel a certain way? Do you feel that way also?
I mean, they definitely have potential to be a good team, a good contender. I mean, last season they didn't lose first round, right? Last season was the play-in tournament.
Yeah,
But
Zion got injured, so they
yeah.
didn't get
So
the full strength.
I mean, their team looks pretty promising. You have Zion, if you have DeJounte Murray, you have McCollum, you have Herbert Jones. The thing is, I think the big question mark going into free agency is Brandon Ingram because there were a lot of rumors about him, getting moved. Like, should they move him now or should they keep him and see how it goes? I mean, with their lineup now, you have like McCollum, you have Ingram, you're gonna have Murray, you're gonna have Zion, and you'll have like Valanciunas. I mean, Alvarado off the bench. I mean, that's not that bad. That's a pretty good
That's not
five.
bad.
I mean,
I think
I
the
guess
question is just Zion's health in that.
I think the question is Zion's health and Ingram's like I guess like free agency because I heard so many rumors that he wants to get moved or I don't know if he wants to get moved, but there were rumors about a trade. Like I saw like the Heat maybe come up as a team. I'm
The
not
Cavs
completely
also
sure.
I saw were
The
another team.
Cavs, yeah.
But I feel like with this move, the Pelicans are saying that they want to go all in.
Yeah,
That they
and
want their team to
make a
compete.
playoff run. Yeah.
So I think this like tends toward the idea that Brandon Ingram will probably be re-signed.
Yeah.
I
They
don't
should
see.
definitely do that. I think that would be a great team if they do that. Honestly.
Yeah, it's just Zion's health. He's unfortunately not been healthy, but last season when he did play, he was great. He was playing phenomenal. Just literally, he got injured in the second to last playing game, and then lost to the Kings and didn't make the playoffs. So I don't know. It'll
I
be tough,
mean,
but I think that they're also definitely going to be an upper echelon team in the West.
also some trade news that just happened like 5 minutes ago. Like Kentavious Caldwell Pope finalizing a 3-year, $66 million deal with the Magic.
That's
Oh,
that vet
that's
that they
big.
needed. It's that vet
So
that we were
yeah,
talking about before.
But that's
yeah,
big. That's I'm looking at it from the other perspective of the Nuggets. That's I feel like that's a big loss for them.
I do.
yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, that definitely affects them because they also lost Bruce Brown the previous year to the Pacers, and now they've lost KCP also, and he's a phenomenal
Teams,
3-point
the
shooter.
team's starting to slowly fall apart. I think it'll still be good though.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I
yeah,
mean,
they got
Bruce
Jamal.
Brown, Bruce Brown is still in free agency from the Raptors, so well, maybe the Nuggets will get him back. Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. I
The
mean, it'll
league's
be an exciting
unpredictable.
free agency for sure.
Yeah,
Definitely get updates on this, but I think that's gonna wrap up today's podcast. First one in a while. Thank you, Roman, for being on the shows.
No problem.
Good to see you as always, and yeah.
yeah. Thanks, guys. Make sure to like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one.